We all sat there waiting for it to be made official yesterday, and it wasn't. Do we know why there's a holdup? In general, how are you digesting this deal?
We've reported that the companies are in talks, and the deal could have been announced as early as yesterday, but as we all know, in big deal negotiations, especially with a lot of personalities, both companies have different controlling shareholders. These things do take time, but we understand it is still on track to be announced.
Okay, so they're just going over everything once again and checking out all the numbers. We know that this tie-up is because it's a race to the bottom when it comes to fees. So it feels like the consumer is going to benefit from this tie-up. But what would regulators say about Schwab having such a dominant position?
Schwab is already number one in the space, and TD Ameritrade is number two. So anytime there's a deal between a number one and number two, the government has to look to see if this is a monopoly. And it's also a consumer-facing deal, which always gets more attention in Washington. But remember, it's not the first deal in this space. Just a few years ago, TD Ameritrade bought Scottrade, and that went through scot-free in Washington. It was only $4 billion, though, so a lot smaller, but there definitely is some precedent.
What about the timing of all of this? Some have been sort of theorizing that basically Charles Schwab announced zero commission, battered their competitors into sort of a share price submission, and then was able to swoop in and buy a competitor. But what's going to be of interest in the details of this deal and also the timing of these zero commissions?
It'll be interesting to see whether the companies address that at all. Usually it takes a couple weeks or even months for the background of the merger to come out. Big deals take months, but it could have been a few weeks. We'll see how it plays out. The optics aren't great, though, for Charles Schwab if it comes out that they started merger talks after they sent shockwaves through the industry by slashing rates. It's just not a good look because, as you said, they beat their competitors into submission. It also raises questions for the other competitors that cut their rates, E-Trade, Interactive Brokers. So they now will have to deal with the fallout, and they'll also have to deal with the fallout of this deal, which will create a huge player.
So Schwab, TD Ameritrade, number one and number two. Then you've got everyone else. What does this potential deal, if it gets done, mean for everyone else, for E-Trade, for instance?
It definitely will put more pressure on margins. It'll put more pressure on the strategy. And what does it mean for upstarts like Robinhood, which have been attracting millions of customers and fragmenting the space? So it might be the shot the industry needs, I guess, for consolidation.